I'm Daniel Lawson, I'm the permanent team manager here at Signify. Been with the company since we first opened back in 2016, and I'm still here. It's a really like open question. I think for me, I loved it. That's the main thing I'd say about growing up in London. I grew up in a household with like loads of brothers and sisters, and in terms of like the school that I went to as well, the primary school I went to was multicultural. It was a mixed primary school. Then when we went to secondary school, it was a boys secondary school. So the school that I went to, the secondary school that I went to was Ernest Bevan College, which is in southwest London in the Tooting, and it was very much a mixed background of ethnicities and people. A lot of people from Asian backgrounds, black, Caribbean or African backgrounds, and also white, English and European backgrounds as well. And I absolutely loved it. I made friends there that I'm still friends with now. So for me, growing up, I've got a lot of positive memories of growing up in London. Because obviously I saw a lot of shit stuff as well, which is normal. I don't know if I should, like, again, tap into that, because it is part of my growing up as well. But I think that, again, the other thing that I would say growing up is where I grew up in Clapham, there was definitely like one of two ways that a lot of people went. So a lot of people did get drawn into maybe the wrong crowd and got into trouble a lot, police, gangs, whereas a lot of people that I grew up with from that same area also went down the academic route or the sporting route or music route as well. And I think the only real differentiator was the people that you hung around with more often than not, because we were all, all in the same environment, but I think the choices that people made is what sort of shaped what direction they went in with their lives. And yeah, again, in the area that I grew up with, I'm still close to a lot of the people that I grew up with. Yeah, not very. It was very much white English males with the odd person from a different ethnic background. And to be honest, that didn't, at the time when I first got into it in 2007, it didn't really bother me.
No.
Perhaps I wasn't quite aware of, how much of a big deal it was that there wasn't that many black people. I know people there, but in the other companies that I've worked for since then, there's been a lot better split in terms of females and also people from different ethnic backgrounds. There's two parts to that. I think some of it is definitely because of the way that people perceive it to be, and some of it can be like an internal thing, and you think, well, that's not for me because I don't see other people doing it who look like me. Mm-hmm. And I think the other part of it is that there are structures in place that mean that some people are shut out from those sort of jobs for whatever reason, whether it's subconscious or deliberately. I think that definitely does exist. So inside of work, I can honestly, hand on my heart, say that I personally haven't ever felt like that. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's because it is a sales job. So I think a lot of the progression and the rewards that you get in sales is just down to how you are performing. So that way it makes it very much a level playing field in some aspects. But again, in my personal life, and this is just my personal experience, I haven't really felt maybe directly confronted with what I would call direct racism, where people have maybe looked down on me or said something to me to my face that was because of the colour of my skin. But yeah, I do think that it exists where people do suffer from that. And I think the biggest thing for me that I've noticed is that a lot of it is subconscious, where you might not realise that you feel that way about someone because of where they're from or their background, their skin colour, but it's just it's the way that you approach a situation that you probably acknowledge you're doing differently because they are that colour, whereas if they was a white person, you probably wouldn't feel the same way that you do because they're black. I think it's human to feel like that at times. For me personally, whenever I felt myself feeling like that, I quickly, snap myself out of it, because again, I think that some of those things are really down to the way that you perceive yourself as well. And if you're perceiving yourself that you're not good enough or you're not worthy of being in a certain position, then I think you can project that outwardly as well. So I definitely have felt it at times, but it's never been like the overwhelming feeling that I've had about myself in any situation. I always try to be quite self-confident and feel like I deserve to be in whatever situation I'm in. Yeah, 100%. And the way that I deal with it is to actually just block it out, which, rightly or wrongly, I don't know if that's the right way to deal with it, but that stuff definitely does happen, and it could be anything from going into a shop and being followed by, security. I'm fortunate enough I haven't actually been pulled over that many times when I have been driving, but I've been in the car with my friends who have been, and they're not criminals, no criminal records amongst them, and the officer pulling us over might say, yeah, it's because of this reason that we suspect that you may be involved in criminal activities, where there's absolutely no basis for that to happen. And yeah, I've been part of it, and you can't help but feel that this is happening because I look a certain way. And yeah, like I said at the beginning of this, me personally, I just block it out, because anything like that which is negative, and I think I have very little control over how someone else perceives me, I don't pay much attention to it, to be honest, because I think if you do start focusing on how other people are perceiving you, especially if it's in a negative way, then you can start allowing yourself to be consumed with those negative thoughts. So for me, I go back to that thing where I say I just perceive myself as being worthy of whatever situation I'm in, being confident, being self-assured, and not allowing their other people's prejudices to affect me as much as they may want it to, or as much as it could do. But that's the thing, it definitely does exist though, and I'm not saying that the way that I deal with it is right. The way that I deal with it works for me, because I function best when I'm in a positive frame of mind. And I think if you do really sit down and think about all the negative things that happen on this planet, then it's enough to make you go insane, to be honest. So where possible, I try and focus on the positives, and almost like put myself in my own little bubble with my family, my partner, my son, my close friends, and the people that I know love and care about me, which is a very multicultural group. I've got friends from all over the world who, when we're together, we don't focus on that. We just literally focus on the personal relationships that we have with each other. And I think that's what I can control. That's what is, what's important to me. So if someone I've never met, or someone who I don't necessarily have any feelings for, has a certain perception of me, then that's their problem, that's not mine. Yeah, definitely. I think the fact that I've achieved a relative level of success in my career definitely does make a difference to the way that I perceive myself, and also how other people might perceive me. And I've got friends, like I said, who I grew up with, who maybe haven't gone down the career route, and maybe haven't been as successful in their careers, but we're from the same place, we look the same, and their experience of prejudice is probably a lot different to mine, and is a lot different to mine from the conversation that I've had with them. So I think that definitely does come into it, what you do for work, for your living, as to how people perceive you and what prejudice you might face, may or may not face. Yeah, at multiple occasions, to be honest. But again, looking back in it, some of the situations felt unsafe at the time, but that was probably just the immediate reaction. Thinking about some of the examples, one would have been that time I mentioned where I was with a friend of mine who we were driving and he was pulled over by police, and it was the second time in 2 days that he'd been pulled over by the same police who said that the car had been linked with firearms, and my friend had no criminal record. There's absolutely no reason for them to say that, and it was a brand new car that he had as well. And you know, probably understandably, my friend was quite annoyed and frustrated that this had happened again, and he was letting the police officers know about how frustrated he was with that situation, and it was getting quite heated. And at that point, you know, that situation could have gone anywhere, but luckily we managed to calm it down. But again, that was probably only a short time frame where I felt unsafe. There have been other occasions where, not too recently, but again, growing up in South London, you know, being in situations with, you know, the wrong crowd, where you might be in the wrong place at the wrong time, where, yeah, situations could have got pretty bad. But, you know, luckily I've been pretty lucky and avoided any real harm or unsafe situations growing up in London. So I don't want to comment on the whole political, you know, movement behind Black Lives Matter, because to be really honest, I don't know exactly what it stands for in a political sense, but I do know that those three words, Black Lives Matter, is important, and that's the only way that I look at it. So I think people who have a perception about, you know, Black Lives Matter is a whole political movement, that's fair enough. But if you just literally break down those three words and what Black Lives Matter means, for me, is that Black Lives Matter as well as every other life. You know, it shouldn't be a case that because, you know, you're black, you're deemed to be less worthy, or, you know, your life doesn't matter. And yeah, for me, that's what I take from that, and what it means to me is that black lives definitely 100% do matter, and they should matter. And for a long time, they felt like it hasn't, which is why I think a lot of the frustrations from the black community have been shown recently all across the world.